How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VGWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Aristo.
Fenurian.
And Volatel, and Ari sounds like the game he's been playing has bled all of his spirit clean out of his body.
It's an SMT game, I suppose. If it's doing that, it's doing it right.
No. Well, it's not even really. It's more like an entry honesty game that Kaneko just decided needed to hate. He needed to hate you so much.
You've got SMT, which is supposed to depress you, and then you've got Etrian Odyssey, which is, just pure hatred in game form.
It's like this is how we express the deep hatred that we have for our player.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yeah.
We can leave that to Ari's week.
Yeah, get it later. So what were we? Stick, right. Okay.
If you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us an email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com or by following us on the Twitter at @excusesvtw. Or by joining us in the Discord chat, which is the most reliable place you can find us at any time, generally speaking, and you can easily access it by going to vtwproductions.com and clicking on any of our recent show posts show logo. So that should take you directly to our Discord channel where you can basically shoot the breeze with us and post whatever you like, provided that, we don't decide to mod Nazi it away, which we probably won't, depending on what it is.
I don't think we've mod Nazi'd anything yet.
I haven't, but
I haven't.
I could probably see my way clear to doing it if it was, trolly enough. But so I don't believe in free speech on my own territory. free speech is for governments to respect, not me.
Oh dear.
But so
I don't give a crap what you post. You can drop whatever the heck you want, and I probably won't delete it.
All right.
You aren't supposed to tempt fate like that. You're going to get like Sonic the Hedgehog inflation porn.
No, why?
Oh, that's
also,
illegal,
is that a thing?
It's like the number one thing that gets posted on DeviantArt.
Ugh. This is why I avoid DeviantArt. Oh boy. Alright, so on the stream today, I'm playing a bit of Staxel, and by playing, I mean stuck in a mandatory tutorial. It's an early access game, but what it basically is, it's Harvest Moon in 3D. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the game. That's a nice, simple description.
I remember that video game.
Remember when Harvest Moon itself was actually good? Now it's all the spin-offs that are good, and Harvest Moon itself is kind of meh.
I only played it on the N64, so...
I guess I sort of classified all the Harvest Moons. Having never played any of them, I classified them all as one big lump. I didn't realise that there was so much subtlety in there. I thought it was like, you farm the vegetables and you marry the girl and it's over.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And occasionally you bake a pie for a competition.
We can't forget winning the pie competition, of course.
The pies are the most important thing. The end state is, of course, pie. So,
it's the best kind of end state.
Now this character's making me feel guilty for not accepting the tutorial. And she's running away. Good grief. She's probably gone off to have a sulk. So, anyway, I guess we just jump straight into our weeks. What have I played this week? Oh dear. I made an attempt at Digimon World New Order, or First Order, or whatever they want to call it. Mostly at this point I'm left with confusion. So
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this game is.
So instead of taking after the other Digimon World games, it takes after the very first one, which instead of being a standard,
like the PS1?
Yeah, that one.
Wow, it's getting back there a while.
That's getting back there a while. After the first one, after the first one, the games ended up kind of going into a fairly Pokemon-style, traditional JRPG direction. The first one, however, was more based on Tamagotchis, or the original Digimon, the wrist little virtual pet thingies. Rather,
and it was really, really, really hard.
It was extremely hard, and
but not really by design, though.
Well, no.
It was more sort of inadvertent.
Yes, Sukamon is everything, and that is all you will ever get.
It's all you need.
Yes. So, yeah. So you get thrown into the digital world. You do a bit of a tutorial where it says, hey, look at how cool this is. You can get Alphamon or Omegamon. I forget which one. They're the same thing, basically. But I know. I heard a Digimon fan just go,
the exact opposite of the same thing.
See? There's the re
They're
already.
The exact opposite of the same thing. They're the exact opposite, in fact.
Yeah.
Omnimon is the lawful, stupid Super Templar, and Alphamon is the chaotic good one. One is white, one is black. How do you mess this up?
Meh, I'm not the hugest Digimon fan. But, anyway, it shows you this, and here's all this information about, fusion and DNA Digivolution and all that. This is stuff you're never going to use until really late in the game, by the way. Because at the start of the game, it drops you off with a pair of, baby Digimon and tells you to just go. And that's it. Throws you out in the field and says, there's a bunch of Digimon you got to go rescue for the town, and go. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, you've got the two at the time. The battle system is very hands-off. Mostly the Digimon will just kind of work in circles and do their own thing and occasionally attack, and you're supposed to cheer them on when they do.
It doesn't sound very combative.
Well, that's half of it. What it is, it's they're just walking around in circles. The enemy Digimon, your Digimon, and they occasionally one of them will make a move and attack. But if you're on uneven ground, they might just attack the floor because that's totally good game design. Then after a certain period, they digivolve. But there's absolutely no way, initially anyway, of saying what it's going to digivolve into. It's all based on stats, and the requirements are completely hidden, initially.
Yep, that sounds like the first Digimon world, alright.
Yeah,
You can be guaranteed you won't get anything nice if your Digimon doesn't like you very much.
Yeah.
In fact, you will get a poo-flinging poo.
You will get a poo-flinging poo. I don't think you end up getting stuck in the Sukamon loop, but I'm still on my first generation because I'm so completely lost. So, after leveling around a bit, I ended up with Saberdramon, which is, Birdramon except black, and Gardramon, which is a robot. I cannot find my farm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And at this point, it's just kind of, Your Digimon don't have levels, by the way. But the enemies do. And there is a significant power difference between the two, a level of enemy Digimon. So, a level 1 Digimon you might just be able to cream, but a level 2 will cream you right back. And all you can do is grind to close this level gap.
I thought you don't have levels.
Well, power gap, I should say. Because while you don't have levels, you still do have the standard stats. And those grow based on training and on what you fight.
Yeah, so you do have them where it's just finer grained than
yeah
a level number.
Yes. They also need to fight. To eat and poop multiple times a day. I haven't managed to let them poop outdoors yet.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's what to say about this game. The story is in there somewhere. You've got
you haven't seen it yet?
Well, no. The tutorial, you fight a machine Dramon, and it's gone rogue, and reasons for that. There's no reasons given. Actually, it's just basically notched up as reasons. But you beat it, and suddenly it reverts back into a little spud thingy and turns good because reasons.
Because that happens on the cartoon.
Actually, it does. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm supposed to be walking around, leveling up my Digimon, finding the lost inhabitants of the town, and bringing them back, or doing their quest so they can bring themselves back. But
it doesn't matter. You're supposed to keep a spreadsheet of all the stats and what they do to your Digimon. That's the whole point of that game.
I think so, yes.
You're just supposed to experiment with it, fail, restart the game about 80 times until you finally get something that isn't a Sukamon or a basic Greymon line.
Yeah.
And it's going to take about 30 restarts just to get from the Sukamon to the basic War Greymon line.
Yeah.
I always thought that was really, really kind of confusing, the way it seemed to me like it was almost inevitable that you were going to end up with Greymon, but Greymon was supposed to be powerful based on the television show.
But when you actually got him in the game, he was kind of middle ground.
He was the worst thing you could get that wasn't actually a person throwing poo.
Yeah.
Wargreymon decent, but a lot of work to get a proper Wargreymon in those games.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. This time, however, it's the same basic principle, except you've got a much bigger pool of Digimon you can get. So
yeah,
you can end up with, I don't know, Shoutmon. Enjoy that, by the way. Shoutmon from the single worst Digimon series going.
No, that one. Well, you don't want Shoutmon. Shoutmon might be worse than Sukamon.
Yeah.
What?
Shoutmon is this dumb idea they had where they went and made the protagonists even younger in one of the recent series, like the one before the current one. And his shtick was he could eat parts of other Digimon and attach them after they got beaten.
That's horrifying.
And he could like Digivolve in this weird way where the dude just shoved other Digimon into him to make him bigger.
It wasn't
really horrifying.
It wasn't quite that grim, but not far off.
Yeah, it was a really bad idea. Nobody liked that.
All fetishists.
He could basically merge Digivolve with anything. And
it's weird.
Yeah.
He could do partial DNA Digivolution stuff, and it just didn't make sense, and it wasn't good, and it was a bad series, and everybody hated it.
Yeah. Especially the fact that even aside from all of that weirdness, Shoutmon is completely unlikable.
Oh, yes, as evidenced by his name. You can guess what his shtick is.
Yes. He's, he should have been in Black Clover.
Asta.
Yeah. Asta! Oh boy, oh boy. So,
it's also the only Digimon season with cameos from the first 3 seasons.
Yes, it is. Because they hate you just that much.
According to that series, all the first 4 seasons take place in the same pseudo-universe or universe group, even though that makes no sense at all.
Yeah. It's more of a reminder case of, hey, remember the good Digimon series? You could be watching any one of these, but now you're watching this. So,
everybody just watches the finale crossover episode of that season, and that's it. And just forgets the rest of it exists.
Yeah, because the rest of it's terrible. Half of it's also, pre-canned filler footage.
It's also made on a shoestring budget, but anyway.
It is.
That was a bad season, and moving on from that.
Yeah. So, Digimon World New Order, it's a game. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's doing.
Because it sounds to me like most of the time you watch it play itself.
At this point, most of the time I'm trying to figure out what the game is doing. And, not willing to go too far away from the toilet because I know the moment I do, they're going to need to poop.
This doesn't sound like a game.
No, it does not. So yeah, that first Digimon World game, it went the JRPG route for a reason.
Yeah, they switched over to the Digimon Story series for a reason.
Yes, they did.
There's a reason that's the mainline game continuity now.
Yeah.
Although they did push a button in the story, the latest one, that worries me. It lets them get away with whatever they want for the next few.
Oh dear. Is it the big undo button?
It's the world reset button.
Oh no. Don't ever press that button.
They can do whatever the hecky they want going forward.
You say don't ever press that button, but I mean, if you look at, say, comic books, they often get themselves into such twisted up knots that they have no choice.
New 52, they got in that situation because they pushed that button in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
It might even have more edges than that. But
incidentally, that was the 90s. Is pressing that button and adding edges.
Sometimes you can make a mess that's too big to untangle.
That you can. And all you can do is say, rocks fall, everyone dies.
Speaking of which, Ari, have you ever actually did that to a party? Has there ever been a party just so awful that you had no choice?
Did you just kill them?
The closest I've had is just I've closed the book up and got it from the table. I've never said rocks fall, everybody dies.
Wow. Well, they were just that bad, it wasn't even worth killing their characters.
Oh no, just because that's not in my personality type at all to say that and do that to group, so I just give up. Like, they were just being colossal douche canoes complaining about everything in the story, so I just closed the book and got up. But that's the worst I've gotten with people.
Yeah. Oh dear. We should D&D at some point, when time allows.
We should. Like, that requires a 3-hour investment every week at a set time.
I don't think I have 3 hours. Like, ever.
No.
None of us are in a position to exploit that at the moment. We cannot make the week spin to our will yet.
We need to become Time Lords. That's the solution to everything.
No, we don't. Only if you mean, like, pre-2005 ones.
Oh, of course.
Okay,
I mean, that's a given.
Well, I mean, this is like this is the end result of every franchise that you love, childhood. Is that eventually the person who writes it is the fan fiction author?
Yeah. Yes.
Like that's quite realistically what happens. Like, there are two options. Either, well, there are technically three, but one of them is just both at the same time. There are two options for your beloved franchises. Either they'll be written by a political hack, or they'll be written by a fan fiction author.
Oh dear. I will even accept up to David Tennant, Time Lords. We passed that.
Yeah, David Tennant was
we're
okay.
not doing that. I will accept 9, 10, and some of 11. Anything after that, we're done.
Oh dear, oh dear.
I mean, that's sort of like we've been seeing that this week with the Thundercats reboot.
Oh, why? Why is that a thing?
That's a thing.
I have not seen anything more horrible than that in some time.
It is ghastly. And that's putting it nicely.
This went clean over my head. What happened?
Oh, they're rebooting Thundercats again.
Yeah. And
did
this
they do
time...
that, like, in the early 2010s?
Yes, they did. And that one was good. But this time they're rebooting it, and it looks like the main artist is the guy who did Regular Show, which was a very strange show. But it looks hideous. It looks terrible. It's like Teen Titans Go all over again.
Let's see here.
You're going to regret this.
DuckDuckGo's not being very nice to me. Oh, goodness, that looks horrible.
See?
Yeah, that looks pretty bad.
Yeah, it does. Speaking of weird shows, I did sit down and indulge in a little bit of nostalgia and watched a bit of Samurai Pizza Cats, which is a very strange show. So,
80s cats.
Yeah. For those who haven't encountered this masterpiece of awful, it's a 80s era anime which was just awful. So when it got shifted over to the West for translation, they didn't ship the script with it. So the crew doing the translation and the dub were free to do whatever they wanted. And what we got was just ridiculous, completely insane.
There is no way they were sober when they wrote the script.
Nope. So here's the thing. I enjoyed this series as a kid. I don't know why. Because going back and watching it as an adult now, there is no way I got these jokes as a kid. At all. And actually a lot of kids these days, adults these days would probably miss them now because they're a bit dated.
Yeah, they're sort of like... They made more sense if you remember the Reagan era, and of course I don't.
Yes. When they're talking about, newfangled technologies like VCRs. Oh boy.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's old. But
do kids even know what VCRs are anymore?
Some? No.
Like...
What about cassette tapes and floppy disks?
Also, no.
Like,
We've reached a point where kids, and actually in some cases young adults, do not know what those technologies are.
Like, these old data storage devices that were pretty common just aren't a thing in the vocabulary of kids anymore.
Nope.
I mean, my only outlet into that group knows about them because we at our office use like the old giant, actually floppy disk when we need to go get an ancient drawing.
Oh, the 5.5-inch ones.
Maybe they're fracking huge.
Yeah, that'd be them.
Actually,
5.25.
5.25. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, they're giant black things that are actually floppy.
And you can physically turn them over to use the other side.
Yes, and double your storage capacity.
I think we actually have a few reversible ones.
Oh boy, old tech.
But yes,
it's weird.
Ancient drawings.
Oh, yeah, the double-sided ones were revolutionary.
Yes.
Yep. So they know what that is, but I don't know what normal people think when they see those if they're like under the age of 25. Like, if you show that to somebody under the age of 25, what's their response?
Fold it in half. I don't know.
What?
Instantly, you could fold them in half.
In the case of the 3.5s, I've heard that the usual response is, why do you have a 3D printed save button?
That I can... it sounds like a punchline to a bad joke, but I know it's going to happen.
I suppose I never thought about it that the save icon is just a floppy disk.
Yeah.
It's just something that's always been there. Like, yeah, it's a floppy disk. You just don't think about it. I guess younger people don't know what a floppy disk is, so they had no point of reference at all for it.
It's just a hieroglyph that means save.
Yes. Wow, we are showing our ages again. Oh dear, we should stop this now, immediately.
Oh no.
What else have I done this week? Something new, something interesting. Kept up with some anime. Sort of. I kept up with Hero Arca because Hero Arca is great. I'm not going to spoil anything from the newest episodes because it's only just gone up, so yeah.
I haven't watched it yet, so you shut your face, sir.
I am not going to say a word. All I'm going to say is it continues to be good. But at this point, that's like saying the sky is blue.
We've needed a good, consistent anime for a while, though. One that's just on every week that you can count to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had that in a long time. That most of the communities generally agree, yeah, that's a fairly decent show, and you can at least talk about it with somebody.
Yes, you can.
It's been a long time since we've had a show that's been constantly running that has that kind of stigma on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the word stigma is for, still.
No, it is not, but whatever.
I was fishing for a word, and it was the only one that I could find.
That was the complete opposite.
Keep going. I'm really bad at English tonight. I'm really, really tired.
You can't words good, sir.
I can't tonight at all. It's been a running thing. Like 4 sentences on the show, I've already tripped over myself. I'm doing really bad tonight.
Oh, dear. So, yeah, that show has a certain stigma of being good, yes.
Yes.
How terrible. I wish I had that stigma.
So did I. I would gladly take that stigma. Shokugeki continues to be good. Again, not going to spoil it because, unfortunately, it has been up all week, but not everyone's watched it, and Shokugeki actually goes up on Mondays, which is really annoying because I can't talk about it on the show. Nor does it actually go up in line with the rest of the anime I tend to watch. Dear. That's the biggest 2 anime I've watched. I did notice, however, that School Defense Club Love has a new season going, apparently, and I didn't notice it.
Yeah, because Magical Girl Ore was in the way?
Yes, it was. Its giant monstrous thighs were getting in the way. That anime, I haven't watched the latest episode, but I've been told it's very, very strange. Which for Ore is...
Job.
Yeah. I'm still not entirely sure who's the biggest joke is played on with that anime, but I'm pretty sure it's me at this point. Oh boy. So that's the bulk of the nerdy stuff I've done for my week. It's just been another one of those weeks. They're happening too often. I need a good nerd week, but I can't get good nerd weeks. Anyway, Vol, sir, how has your week been?
I have the ick.
Yeah, again.
So, yeah, I've got another cold. Because apparently I just can't catch a break. Ever.
But you can catch cold.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm in fact quite good at that for some reason. So I haven't really had the enthusiasm to even attempt anything particularly interesting. It's been pretty much a week of just trying to survive. So go to work and don't keel over before the end of the day. So I haven't done a great deal of anything. I haven't been able to bring myself to play more Diablo. Like, it's...
Nah.
I could play Diablo or I could kill Diablos. Like, there's not really a reason to play Diablo. It's just not good enough. That's the thing. Like, I'm sure eventually I'll feel like, okay, I'll give it another shot. But it's just, it didn't leave enough of an impact for me to play it. Not when I've got other things to play. Like, I have a mountain of Neptunia games. And
yeah, that mountain never gets smaller.
No, because they release them at such a pace. But yeah, so I haven't really done anything particularly interesting this week. And I got paid because it was payday, so obviously I had to blow a bunch of cash, and I ordered a pile of new books. So I ended up getting the next like 4 Log Horizon books or something like that in the post.
You did catch up on your Dresden Files at least.
I did. So on my day off, which was Tuesday, on Tuesday I sat down and I finished Cold Days and I read all of Skin Game, and so I got nothing that day.
Yeah.
So I liked Skin Days much more than I like Skin Game much more than I like Cold Days.
I agree with that, but I think we're in the minority.
Like, I saw a lot of people saying that Skin Game was not very good, and I'm not really sure what the meaning was. But I find the Denarians as adversaries vastly more interesting than anything the Fae have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a reason for doing things. Fae, for the most part, are just basically, they're expressing Brownian motion for being Fae. Like, when Fae does something that is enough to generate a plot, the reason why they are doing it is usually like the same reason a dog scratches its ear. Like, it's not because they care about anything in particular. Mm-hmm. It's because it's who they are. They generate plots by nature. And so they don't really grab my interest because, it's Fae being Fae. And provided that Harry doesn't, die at the end of the book.
Again.
There's probably not going to be anything particularly interesting happen. It's just, the balance will eventually be restored and then we'll all go home happy. And that's, for a given value of happy. And that usually is what happens. Like, the story just ends, and then everything is back the way it was before the story took place, to a greater or lesser extent, with a few perturbations. Like, I feel like the sort of seasonal motif that the Fae operate under means that nothing ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Denarians, by contrast, have very, very definite goals and very definite things that they want to happen, and they're all fundamentally human. So... well, the knights who carry the angels are anyway. And because they're human, they behave in human ways and they do human things, and you can tell human stories about them, which is something that you frankly can't do with Fae. Like, there's no in for a human there. Nope. Like, the most interesting that Mab ever is when she shows her big weakness at the end of Cold Days and is unable to kill her daughter because she's still at least that much human. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the only pathos that Mab has ever shown. Ever.
Yep.
And it's the only time she's ever been an interesting character as a result.
Mm-hmm.
So, the nuts of all this is that the Fae aren't interesting, and I wish he would stop writing books obsessed with them. Because they don't go anywhere.
Yeah, but we still got the whole Winter Night thing going on, so until Harry manages to wiggle his way out of that, we've got to put up with Mab, at least at the book ends.
Well, the thing is that all that you need to do with basically is that, Mab shows up and is basically like, "Good morning, angels," and Harry's like, "Good morning, Charlie." Like, that's all that's necessary.
Yeah, but that's horrifying.
It is horrifying. That's why I did it. But that's all the purpose that Mab really needs to serve at this point. Like, I know there are other things brewing, but any time that the Fae are like the central artificers of the plot, you just know the plot's not actually going anywhere. Like, it will look like it's going anywhere for the longest time, but, the Fae are like the seasons. As much as it is in their nature for them to connive endlessly, it is also in their nature for everything to fall back into balance at the end.
Yes. Pieces may move on the board, but they're ultimately back at the same position.
Yeah, the only question is, does anybody important die in the process? And frankly, in Cold Days, the answer is no. Quite frankly, the Cold Days in many ways is a disastrous waste of a plot line, because they functionally just remove Aurora from the plot without her doing anything ever.
Yeah,
like she never does anything at any point in the franchise. She just departs, having affected the story not at all.
Yeah, she's the big bad of book 2 or book 3, but she doesn't actually do anything. Lily, no, is even worse.
Despite the fact that they're basically the same person.
Well, at the end, that's the whole point.
But the thing is that that's all. That's all. Like, you lose Aurora, you bring Aurora back in the form of Lily, and then you lose Lily and replace Lily with Sarissa. Like, what does it matter in the end? Like, you've already shown through a absolute completed start to finish cycle of replacing a character from the Summer Court that nothing happens even if you kill them dead. It doesn't perturb the narrative any.
The biggest can of worms with Cold Days is the "what is a mantle" question that gets asked by the fandom, and what does this mean? And it's really hard to tell what Jim was going for, because there's a couple of ways he could take this. Right? He could make Sarissa and Mab's relationship make cross-court communication more human. That's the thing he could do. He could do a whole lot of stuff with the new Winter stuff. Spoilers, but and he's written a few books about that to give going on. So the face story, there's a lot of things he could do, but we don't know yet because he's been like playing at cons and LARPing too much.
Yes,
well, that's the thing though. Like, he's been treading water with the Fae for so long. Like, the only perturbation that they have really had that sticks is that Harry's now the Winter Knight, and the only reason it sticks is because he's not Fae. All of the other shenanigans that carry on, none of them really mean anything. Like, the biggest change is that basically Titania can be relied upon to only ever be an adversary at this point. Like, there's not really, like, things don't happen. That's the core of my objection is things don't happen when you write a book about the Fae.
Yeah,
there's plenty of room for them to do things with mortal characters being involved with the Fae, but like the more powerful a Fae is, the least interesting that seems to be the general rule.
Yeah. Like, by the way, this book has been out for 4-5 years now.
So it hardly counts as spoilers anymore.
Yeah. So that's why the spoiler tag is off.
But
Leah at least was interesting because she's not so powerful that she has to abide by so many rules in the same sort of way. Like, the higher up you are, the less optional rules are. Like, Leah can get away with breaking the rules provided she doesn't get caught, just to a certain extent. Mab can't. Mab is the rules.
Mab is the rules,
to an extent only surpassed by the crones. So
the other ones.
Yeah.
There's the scene of the entire Wild Hunt scene in that book has endeared it to a lot of fans, though.
I didn't like it.
Really?
That had it's got Deus Ex Machina written all over it.
Well, yeah, it does.
Like, that's the only reason it's in there, is to give Harry an out, which is not really integrated to any other part of the story. Like, so, oh, and this other thing that happens on Halloween is since everybody's out to play, that means the Wild Hunter's there as well, and we can use this as the out. And what's more, it's not even a real out because Harry doesn't genuinely win the right to lead the hunt. They basically drop it in his lap.
Yeah.
Like, everything about it is very, very false. It's very fake. And while it's a cool image in a lot of ways, it's an entirely artificial one.
Yes. Yeah, it's cool, but it just does not work properly for the story.
Yeah, I mean, like this, I thought of it when I read it, and I thought, well, that's cool, but now he's just a Mary Sue. That's all you've accomplished here, is that you've given him a moment of Sudom where he was able to transcend what he is actually capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Because the plot demanded it. Like, I did not think that it was a great move. Like, there has to be a more subtle and interesting way of doing it, other than just giving him a mountain of power temporarily in order to get him through.
Yeah. Thankfully, that's where I found Skin Game excelled.
Yeah, like the Skin Game, like he's paying the bills on everything all the time,
and
he runs out. He runs out of physical and psychological cash basically, and breaks down. Like, he doesn't have anything left. There's no miracle comes by to save him. The miracle comes in the form of a person. So in every case, like, it's somebody gave him a reason to believe that it was worth keeping on. It's all every time he's dealing with people with humanity, he can do these kind of things in the story.
Yes.
Anytime it's just it's more fade bullcrap. Like, that's not. There's no character development is going on there. It's just negotiating alien behavior. So yeah, I think that story is much better, and you basically it's got a sort of like every single time Michael appears in the story, it's got a degree of heroism at work that you just don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, but actually, for the first time in that story, Michael gets upstaged.
Well, it's not really a question of whether it's upstaged, because you could say, he's upstaged in the sense of the particular list of actions that he took, perhaps in their physical expressions, he's upstaged, the sort of like surprise factor and all that, he gets upstaged, so on. But he's basically the moral apex of that entire cast.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
The entire story reorients itself because of him. Because he brings the moral center back to the story. That there's actually something more important than all of these celestial wars that take place just out of sight, and that's maintaining the moral center. He's basically he becomes the de facto moral compass for everybody who comes into contact with him, including Nicodemus.
Yes.
Like that's how much of an actual hero this guy is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I generally like those stories where he, it doesn't matter if he gets physically beaten, because he never ever gets spiritually beaten. So it ends up drawing things to satisfying conclusions ultimately, even if they don't directly involve him, because people can. It ends up becoming a coherent battle of people against their worst natures and against other people's worst natures, rather than ending up always being, can we out finesse the Fae today?
Yes, and it is probably as close as you'll get to a happy ending because of that, except for the fans, because we've had to wait nearly 5 years for it.
Well, I mean, I didn't have to wait very long. I haven't had to wait very long, so I'm fine with it. And the other thing, I guess, is that I found it quite satisfying because I totally shipped Harry and Lash.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's a thing.
It's a weird
it's a very, very strange thing.
I don't know if it's going anywhere or what precisely they'll do with it. It's very strange, completely untrue territory.
Yeah.
But
The question is he going to build Bob another skull because he had to use one or not?
He's probably going to have to. Like, I mean, I think maybe that, like, because he's basically got another daughter now. A completely unplanned daughter that he was pregnant, which I'm sure was not the thing that he expected to happen.
Well, they got Murphy laughing her ass off.
I'm pretty sure that it will be funnier when he tells Thomas. But like, he's never going to live that down, like, ever.
Nope.
It's just not going to happen. But he's functionally got another daughter now, and I don't think he's going to at length consider a skull to be the appropriate growing up environment for her. So presumably he will make something else,
something pink probably,
unless there's like some reason skulls are traditional or something.
The new short story involving them all better be good.
Yes.
There's too many questions there.
They actually do have a name for the other daughter, but it's not in the main books. I can't remember what she's called now.
Oh, Butcher revealed it, and I forgot what it is.
Likewise.
I have to Google it.
Yeah. So now you're you're almost to the point where we've been sitting for 5 years. You've just got to sit on it for 5 years to get to the same point we are now.
If you hope that I have to do that, that means that you've got to wait another 5 years. So
yeah, that's not happening.
I suggest you be more charitable than that. For your own sake.
Yes. No, I wouldn't be that cruel and not let you read the book for 5 years. That's just mean.
Short story compilation coming. The publisher has it. It's out of his hands. Butcher can't mess with it anymore.
At least it doesn't end on a note of like conventional cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a nice rounded closed ending.
But if it had been 5 years after changes,
it was, what was it? 2? That was long enough. And that's the point I entered the book, the series was right at that point.
I expect that there was a great deal of...
Oh, yes, there was.
It's hard to come up with a scenario to make your fans re-harder than that, to be honest.
Yep. I think that's the ultimate cliffhanger.
That's top rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Butcher, quit going to cons. Stop it. Write the books.
Write faster.
You used to write at a fairly good pace.
Yeah, and then you stopped.
What happened?
He's approaching the George R.R. Martin singularity.
Yeah.
You better not. I mean, I've only had to put up with 3.5 for 3 to 2 maybe years. I forgot when I read the series. But yeah. And it's still been obnoxious. I hate coming in the middle of a book series because I know this is going to happen every single time I pick up an unfinished series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as the author doesn't, drop dead or something halfway through a book series. Which has happened.
Before the day and age of cons, this wasn't a problem.
Was it now?
Wasn't it?
Is it really about cons?
I don't know, but it seems to me. I do not read any complaints about people that used to have to wait, and I've asked around about it. They're like, no, we never had 4 or 5 year waits, barring a few select series between books. They would come out, every year or 2 years. But after convention season, it seems like every single major popular book series just has this huge gap between book releases all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems a bit harsh, but yeah. If there are, I'd be sort of surprised if there are people who are still, genuinely excited for the next George R.R. Martin book, because let's be realistic. There's a lot of water under the bridge now.
Yeah, there is.
There's going to be standard for people to accept the end of the TV show as the canon.
If he doesn't hurry up and write the actual canon ending, then yeah, that's pretty much where people are just going to leave the series.
Well, I mean, how often does that really happen though? The story as it plays out on the television show is supposed to be functionally done with his blessing, right? The story is not independent of what he wants. So how does he then go about writing that book?
Yeah.
Because he's effectively written an ending already. Like, I know that it happens a lot in anime where there'll be an ending will be inserted into an animated version of a manga which isn't finished yet or whatever, and it goes usually one of two ways. Either way one, it will be an arc ending which doesn't affect the position that it would occupy in a storyline, and the second way is that it becomes famous for being terrible.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens every time they just write in an ending, which is an actual ending. It always becomes famous for being terrible.
We see that way too often.
It's not very common in the West, though. Like, you don't see a whole lot of adaptations in general in the West that will start with the series unfinished and then give it an ending. That I can think of, anyway. There might be. I can't remember any that have been in popular culture, though. Not like Game of Thrones. Or like we traditionally think of with anime.
Yeah, so, Western productions tend to go with a finished work from the get-go. More often than not.
Yeah, if Western productions are going to adapt something, it's usually had a few years under its belt being done. But, yeah. I can't think of a scenario like this in the mainstream like TV shows that are super popular in the West. I mean, we're used to it with anime and Eastern shows, but not Western stuff. So this is a little bit different.
I was just trying to think of any comic book arcs that have done it, but I can't name any either. They tend to be done in comic book form as well.
They generally get direct video ports of specific arcs or specific series, but they do not focus on any kind of major storyline with them. They just say, oh, you already know who the Flash is. Here's Flashpoint, the movie. That's it.
Yeah.
They just tell one, and yeah, there's stuff before and after it, but there's comics for that. And they just assume you know that.
Yes.
You say that, but then they do like Spider-Man's origin story a gajillion times.
Please stop.
Spider-Man's a special case. Poor boy's had like 4 series in the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, nobody needs to see Spider-Man's origin story again.
At the point where the MCU even said, no, we've seen it too much. It's been done. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is.
Yep. So here's a movie. It's got Spider-Man in it.
Speaking of which, have you seen the marketing tactic being used by the new Deadpool movie?
Which one? It's a lot.
I've seen photographs of stores, right?
Yeah.
Which are selling DVDs and such like, where all of the slip covers around the Blu-rays and that are all they're all versions of the movie cover that have been replaced, where Deadpool has replaced the characters and is making comment on the content of the movie and such like.
That sounds completely in line with Deadpool, and I love it.
And they've basically been doing this sort of guerrilla marketing thing in agreement with the stores, I'm sure. But where the shelf will just be loaded with the Deadpool version of movies.
I would totally watch every single one of those movies. So
the Deadpool movie itself was pretty bad.
Well, yeah, it didn't do anything new, but basically it was Ryan Reynolds going nuts in a costume for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed by it. I felt like the plot didn't really support the character very well. The plot was so staggeringly generic that there was nothing for him to comment on other than just trying to be a generic wise ass, which after a while just sounded forced because it was like he was working in a vacuum.
They kind of rushed through Deadpool's origin story and then it was like, well, what now? So, yeah, the second half of the movie was, just kind of milled about without really doing anything. But that's fine, I suppose, because we've got Deadpool 2, which has Cable And provided that it didn't make a complete mess of it, that's the more interesting storyline anyway.
Right, anyway, we're talking about my week.
Yes.
This was straight. So yeah, I've read Dresden Files up to date. I haven't read the side story books, anthologies, whatever's yet. But I'll get around to that eventually, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why everybody felt like Skin Game was so terrible and all, because I thought it was quite good. It was sort of a bit video gamey in a way, but
yeah, a little bit.
It was so much more human than Cold Days. Like, what was the time gap between the two, actually?
I think it was only a year.
Right.
In real life or in universe?
In real life.
Yeah, about a year, I think. I'm just going from memory there, so don't quote me.
Yeah, even a year might be enough that, people didn't read them back to back for the first time like I did. Like, by and large, Cold Days is a really soulless story, and for large portions of it, it's just
that's got nothing to do with the fact that half the cast doesn't actually have souls.
Well, yeah, the entire thing is just basically trying to build a plot out of Harry acting out of character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's not fresh. Like he's been under influences before. This is not new.
Yeah.
And him making a big thing out of it, like, that's blatantly just a product of stress, and it doesn't really. I don't think it's got much to do with the mantle, to be honest, because he's been in this position so many times in the past.
Yeah, it was new when Small Favour did it. Honestly,
he's always got stuff in. Like, he seems to have stuff in his head more often than not.
Yeah.
I've actually seen the opposite when I was reading around and following the communities. Like, Skin Game seems to be fairly well liked, more than Cold Days was, and certainly more than Ghost Story. Ghost Story seems to be the black sheep of the group, although I really like Ghost Story.
Ghost Story's main problem is it's too long. Like, he spends a lot of time doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's dead. I get it.
This game! Okay. Sorry, random tangent just based on what's going on in the stream at the moment. So I managed to find a way to skip over the tutorial in this game for the first time. Is that the character who does the tutorial is now stuck in a corner, but refuses to give you a license until you actually come back and do the forced tutorial. And she makes you apologise.
Yeah, you better.
You better do my forced tutorial. So I've got to follow her around for a while now. Why do this?
Somebody has had a field day updating the Dresden Files Wikia.
Oh?
Like, it's had some serious updates. It probably needs some editing, but like it's got a lot of work done onto it. It went from like 100 to 981 pages in like the last 6 months.
Wow, yeah, someone's been busy.
Are you sure you're at the same wiki?
Yeah, it's the Wikia one. The only one that was there. But yeah, like, I just opened it up randomly, and that page number is way bigger, and the pages are way better organized. Like,
what have they got on it? Each page is one page for each of Harry's spells, characters, friends, and favorite drinks?
I don't know. Like, I just opened it up, but they the book summary pages have like introduced new plot points as a bulleted list, and like new characters, and like properly scripted boxes and stuff. Like, this wasn't here before. None of this was here before.
Somebody organized has been through it.
Yeah, somebody decided to do some cleanup. I don't know about the content of any of it, but
meh.
But the boxes look pretty. Fixed it up. I like when wikis suddenly get a big influx of information like that and become usable.
It's probably like one person discovered the series for the first time and just became fanatical about it.
It happens. A lot.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. But yeah, the wiki's actually usable now.
Yay!
Unlike all the Monster Hunter wikis, which
are terrible. Oh boy. Where were we?
I presume most of the stuff is probably documented at this point. It's just that wikis are.
Yeah,
you gotta go to like the Reddit has a page of like a collection of help pages that's impossible to navigate, but the information's there now usually. I'm not sifting through it. If you need something, you can go find it. That thing's a mess.
Oh boy.
Anyway, what else? I'm trying to think of something I've done. But yeah, I spent my entire day off reading, so I haven't done very much. No, I can't think of anything.
No,
not really. I mean, I've continued following anime, but I haven't been watching any that are particularly noteworthy aside from the ones that you're watching. And I've talked about Full Metal Panic before, which continues to be quite good. It seems to have moved on to a more sort of. It's not. It's moved into a new arc, we'll say. So it's not wound. It's not wound tight as a bowstring right now. Like the major conflict has been set up by the first 4-episode arc, and now it's sort of like going back to business as usual.
Everybody keeps gushing about how good that series is at the moment.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think that it's good, but I have no idea if it's actually good or if it's just nostalgia talking, because I have a lot of nostalgia for that series. I enjoyed it very much when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's sort of hard to tell. But it seems really good to me. To me, it's like all of the emotional notes that they're pulling off are, generally speaking, with characters that I feel like I know, because, I spent so much time watching them in the past. So it's sort of hard to tell if it's something that they've earned or not. But yeah. Are there any other ones? What's it called? I can't remember.
Brain farts the anime?
I was going to say my brain isn't so much fart as it just sort of like quietly creeps away. So last period had a more normal episode. Like it was like this most recent episode that I've watched was basically like something straight out of a kid's show. Like it was a totally conventional storyline, but it was still sort of relaxing for all of that. Rather than being the entire thing being ridiculously meta, because it really is ridiculously meta a lot of the time, and I don't really understand how you can be so scathingly critical of gacha games while selling them.
That'd be last period. By the sound of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah. The newest episode has been pretty standard sort of material, but I haven't had a huge amount of free time, but they are switching my schedule at work, thank the heavens. So in a couple of weeks I'm going to get put on a schedule which will allow me to have a weekend.
Yay!
So
I remember what those are.
my days off. I get both of my days off adjacent to each other soon, so I don't constantly feel tired. But yeah, there's still other things that I want to watch this season, and frankly last season as well, that I just haven't had time to. Because time suddenly becomes at a premium if you work full time. Which is not good. Caligula, I found out why it seems to be so Persona, and it's because the guy who's directing it worked on the first, who directed the original game on which the anime is based, worked on the first 3 Persona games. So
it is Persona.
Yeah.
He was very heavily involved in the Persona 2 duology. I know that was a thing when the game was out.
But the game Caligula Effect is it rated extraordinarily poorly when it came out. But they're doing a updated version for PS4. It actually just came out. But it's more. It seems like it's more of an update the way Persona 3 for the PSP was an update, because they're like adding new characters, they're adding a female main character, that sort of thing. So yeah, maybe that'll be good enough. Maybe they'll do a localization. I'll try it out. But the systems in it look kind of complicated in a lot of ways. So yeah,
even with the beta text, it scored pretty dang bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there really is. I started watching through the new season of Cardcaptor Sakura. And
I've been meaning to do that.
More or less the same as the old Cardcaptor Sakura. That's what I would say. So whether or not you like it will depend entirely on how much nostalgia you have for Cardcaptor Sakura when you were younger.
As I understand it, it's basically Magical Girl Classic.
Yeah, it's sort of one of the seminal series, founding series of the genre, in its sort of purest form.
But on the other hand, you've got Magical Girl Ore, which is...
It's a pretty severe distortion of the concept, to be honest.
Yes, it is. Oh, boy.
But yeah, I'll leave it there. I don't think I've got much else to talk about for the week. I'm still in monster hunting mode at this point because I don't have any particular affection for Diablo 3, and I feel sort of guilty about that because I feel like I didn't give it a fair go in some sense because I didn't play all the way through the second act. But I would feel a lot more guilty if I didn't feel the game was a carbon copy of Diablo 1. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
Yeah, I tried to get back into Diablo 3 and take a crack at it, but at the end of the day, I kept going back to Grim Dawn because I can screw around with builds there.
I was also talking to a friend on Discord last night, and he's a huge fan of Muso games and of spectacle fighters. Like he has triple S ranks on the hardest difficulty of every level of every Devil May Cry game.
Oh, so he's a genuine crazy person then.
Yeah, he's sort of like Ari. But and I think that includes Devil May Cry 2 as well. But I was talking to him and he said, absolutely do not let your money go anywhere near the new Dynasty Warriors. Absolutely not.
I've heard that opinion a lot.
It's not even like Dynasty Warriors, apparently. Like they've standardized and normalized all the moves and things, and the characters are all carbon copies of each other, and the stories are all boring.
That's the best bit of Dynasty Warriors, having individual characters and completely idiotic stories.
Well, yeah, part of the reason that I get so much mileage out of Fate Extella, despite it being bad, is because, in Muso games, what you tend to see is that every character has an incredibly eclectic collection of abilities which doesn't resemble any others. It may or may not be useful, but that's not the point.
Yes.
But he said absolutely don't play it. Just miss it entirely. There's nothing there that is worth you'd have to spend.
Yeah, the word hot garbage I've seen thrown around a lot.
I'm disappointed to hear that from an authoritative source that I know, but that's just basically the way the cookie crumbles, apparently. It's not good. Period.
Yeah. It's a real disappointment. I was looking forward to a Dynasty Warriors 9. But I guess we'll just have to play Hyrule Warriors number 3. I think this is the third release now on the Switch. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. But I guess I'll go back to waiting for Extella Link.
So, yeah, which has the most majestic head of hair attached to a character somewhere.
Yeah, that hair. So yeah, they released this week, or was it last week? I don't remember. They released the gameplay footage for Darius, and yeah, he's pretty over the top.
I expect half of his moveset to involve nothing but shouting.
He does roar a lot, but he also rides on elephants a lot.
Excellent. This is how it should be.
Yeah, so I'm so hyped for that game. I don't even care if it's bad at all. So yeah, I'll leave my week there because I'm really stretching the point.
Yep.
Alrighty. We should probably go to a break.
That we should.
Alright. We're gonna put on some music and we will be right back. And we are back.
And still enthused, I see.
Yes. I'm trying to get my energy back. It's just so much.
Well, here's your cue to explain to us what has got you so enthusiastic this week.
Yes.
Well, before I do that, you got anything else?
No.
Because this is going to get ranty. Oh,
okay.
Boy.
Get ranty, sir.
So, I punched my way through the rest of SMT4 Classic just because I couldn't leave it. I can't leave things unfinished when I'm that close to finishing them. So I took like 4 hours and just blasted through it and said, okay, it's done, and with a little checkbox next to it and got another ending for it.
SMT Classic, the really bad one.
Yeah. So the reason I was playing these games was to get in an SMT mood for Redux, which came out because it got retconned into the main timeline, as I've said before.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so you need to know Strange Journey stuff to figure out what the heck is going on in newer SMT games. And Strange Journey was originally a classic DS title and was like the experiment that led into the Etrian Odyssey games. Like it was a passion project by Kaneko, and it was really stupid hard and really, really old by today's standards. It's like an 8-year-old video game on the DS.
Mm-hmm.
So they, like a bunch of the DS games that were fairly well received, they did a super remake of it with a ton of new content and stuff. And so I was getting set to play that with Strange Journey Redux, and it came out on Tuesday. So I had it pre-ordered on Amazon, and it showed up, and it wasn't that bad. It was like $30 for a new game. That's a reasonable price for a remake. Brand new. Didn't come with any goodies in the box. It was just a game. Which was a little disappointing, but I understand. They're not going to incentivize too much or spend too much on advertising for this game because the game did not do well in the West at all. So I think that they assumed it was just never going to do well. So They localized it as far as translating the English text, and after many delays, we finally got it. It's been out in Japan for quite a while now. So this was the majority of my week, and involved me having to stay up late to find time to play it, which is why I'm tired. Because you can have free time, you can have a job, or you can have a social life, and or you can have sleep rather. And sleep was the optional one that got cut. I'm a little tired. I'll have to recoup for a few days after this. Oops, I just knocked something off my desk. So yeah, this is a first-person dungeon crawler, like old school first-person dungeon crawler, that if you set it to the difficulty the original was at, is absolutely unforgiving. And really, with maps that are absolutely making me tear my hair out.
Yeah.
So the new content they added for this game on paper doesn't look like much. But then you realize that the one new dungeon they added is actually 8 new dungeons that are each as long as one of the main game, if not longer, with infinitely more complicated puzzles for the level of difficulty each one's at. So they take a while. So you have to clear this thing to get the nuke in. Currently in the original, it doesn't matter what route you go, the Earth still dies horribly, or becomes enslaved to hyper-authoritarianism, or being a lawless land of anarchy. Like, there's nothing you can do in the original endings that ends good for the world. So they have introduced a new character, which is a time traveler that comes from whichever ending you would have picked. Her history is malleable depending on which route you wind up going on. And she shows up in the second sector of the game, which is about when you're level 10, is when you start that sector. And she just kills you. She's like level 55 or something, and doesn't even have to pull out her demons. She just does like 2 attacks and wipes out your whole party and you. And you get drug off to this new dungeon area.
Right.
And this effectively acts as the Yamala network did. If you've done any reading on how the original Nocturne versus the version we got in the West was. The Yamala network is structured in... You're supposed to progress it gradually throughout the game instead of doing it all at once. And that's very heavily incentivized in this game as well. There's a lot of incentive for doing this place as soon as you get the access, like whatever door unlock code you need to keep progressing it. Or, whatever new ability lets you jump over gaps or something stupid. Because the rewards in it make the game so much less tedious every one you unlock.
Well, in Nocturne, the reason you progress the Amala network is usually because you got lost in there.
Yeah.
Yes. And thankfully, you know the purpose of this thing in this release, and we have the original to compare it to, so we know that this thing is an optional piece of content for special endings, and that we're not just running around in it because we're lost. You can get out whenever you want by returning to the starting point and taking the elevators back up to the top, and just walk back into your ship. So, this place is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. The first boss that I ever hit a roadblock on in this game was the second boss of this new dungeon, which was about level 30-something. And I had heard horror stories about some of the bosses in this game. I was not really having any trouble, generally able to just brute force my way through by having high vitality rolls on my protag, until I got to Ishtar, who was a password-only demon in the first game, and only showed up that way. She had no role in the story and couldn't be encountered anywhere. But she's a boss proper in the bonus dungeon for the second sphere out of 6, maybe more. I don't know. More might open up after I beat the 6th sphere, I imagine so. This place never seems to end. And she has some really, really, really hard-hitting moves, one of which is a dying level wind spell at level 30 that hits a random targets a random number of times. I think it's up to like 6 times this thing can go off, and it has a 50% chance to charm whatever it hits.
That sounds unpleasant.
Yeah. So she hits like a truck, and she could charm your dudes. So that was fairly hard, but you can gear around that. You can fuse Sonas around that. You can get Tam Lemon, a bunch of other charm immune Sonas that have decent physical and wind resist. You can fuse that and get a team that can beat her. That's doable. Then you get back to the main game. And the main game wasn't very hard after that as far as the combat went until the 5th boss. And this was the roadblock to end all roadblocks. This is Maya Ouroboros, who is, if you've seen the new design of Ouroboros in the games, where she's the silver snake with the infinity rings inside of her, this is a different version of her, but uses that art. This is where that art came from, and this is Maya Ouroboros, and she has some really, who decided this was a good idea abilities. The most notable one is the ability called Disaster Cycle, which hits random targets for a random number of times, I think up to 8. It's 1 to 8. And while you can dodge and nullify the attacks if you can resist physical, it has a random chance, even if you resist the damage, to inflict 1 to 5 random status ailments on you. Like, it can just say you're done if it hits the wrong person. In addition, she has Mahama with a plus 25% boost to its hit rate. So she can just blast your whole team and insta-jib you. Now, thankfully, human characters are immune to light by default, so you don't have to worry about your protag getting owned. But, yeah, it's a nightmare of a fight. I had to wind up running a guy with an ability that I don't use in SMT, even on hardest difficulties anymore. It's the Tetraja move that makes you immune to light and dark for 1 turn. And just his job was to just push that button every single turn. Like, we would sit there and the way I finally beat the fight was have him bust out 3 luster candies, and then after that, and just hope for the first 3 turns she doesn't touch the Bahama button, which she can, and thankfully she didn't, and then just have him mash that button. And your protag in this game has all characters, including your protag, have stats randomly assigned. So what inevitably winds up happening is your protag is incredibly underpowered. Like, he can't do anything for damage. So he winds up as a weakness exploiter or an item bot. And that's his job. You wind up with him throwing out beads and bead chains, and whatever you fuse to make sure you don't die instantly, mashing the I don't die instantly button. And the other thing's trying to outpace her healing, where she heals 161 damage every turn, and you can barely do 200. It's a long and very taxing fight when you finally get it off. But she dies, and then the rest of the game has been fairly easy as far as combat goes from there. That has not been the major problem with the game. The major problem with the game is whoever designed these maps is an absolute sadist.
Yes. So my only experience with Etrian Odyssey style maps has been Persona Q, and that was bad enough. Stupid rabbit.
Yeah. These games are... Persona Q is the baby version of Strange Journey. You have to remember that.
Yeah.
Strange Journey was made to make players hate themselves. Yes. This is the game that got the quote, Atlas feeds off of your tears. And there's a good reason for that. This game is just these maps, teleporter puzzles, as far as the eye can see. Once I finally mapped out Sector Aradius, the 5th zone, as much as was allowed at the time, I looked up a map of it just to see what the heck this place looked like when you pulled up the full map. There are 49 combinations of teleporters in one subsector of Sector Aradius. Just one corner of the map. There are 49 teleporters and their drop-off point. Like,
why?
And they start overlapping. It is just a stupid number. And the area I'm in is being one of the worst sectors in any dungeon crawling RPG ever, and that sector Grooves. And it has legitimately just made me sad playing through it. Like, I just don't want to go down there again. It's a nightmare it's a nightmare of one-way doors everywhere with an even bigger teleporter puzzle that goes across an entire 2 floors of the map. Like, this is just a nightmare. With auto-moving floors where you step on one floor and it turns out it's a slippery ice floor and winds you up across the entire map. And to get back to that point so you take another path, you have to jump through like 8 teleporters. I hope you remember the sequence of ones you had to go through. It's a royal nightmare, some of these zones. Some of them are fine. Like, Sector Delphinus was fine. Like, Sector Boots was fine. Sector Antila was fine. All these were okay mazes that were doable, but didn't require any kind of, like, note-taking on which teleporters you've taken that go where. Even a map isn't that helpful. Like, you still have to remember which teleporters to go through. It's just, they weren't kidding. This game is really, really frustrating at some points, which is a shame because it can be really fun. The combat system doesn't use the press turn system, which I don't enjoy. I like the press turn system much better, but what they have is the alignment team-up system where you make more decisions are made in the building of your team than the actual combat, which is the opposite of how SMT normally does things. SMT normally has you build your team to exploit weaknesses and then make decisions in combat based on what weaknesses you can exploit. In this one, exploiting a weakness instead of giving you more turns simply gives you a bigger boost in sudden burst of damage every time you exploit it by your whole team that matches the alignment of the dude who exploited the weakness, law, chaos, or neutral. We'll do a team attack together that counts as almighty damage. So you'll just blast the thing for like 120 damage, which is great for clearing trash and everything, but on bosses it doesn't add a whole lot of strategy to the fight. It just makes it so the fight's going to last longer. And they try to put in gimmicks like the aforementioned, the boss recovers 160-something HP a turn to make it more appealing to you. But I just don't like that system very much. But the story of the game is fairly good, despite the fairly ambitious, like, Earth is running out of resources and humans are to blame, environmentalism. I'm betting it gets deconstructed. Because A, it's an SMT game, and B, it's so ambitious about it, there's no way they can keep playing this straight. Like, it doesn't come off that way. There is no way they can keep going this hard about it without them deconstructing it at the end.
All right.
Like, yeah, humans, it's just every sector is dedicated to humans being monsters in some way. Like, the first one is how humanity is evil in their warfare and how they're great destroyers and conquerors. And the tyrant of that zone wants to emulate humans. The next one is how they give into the vices of pleasure, and they have a giant pleasure palace, and it's somehow also mixed in with science and experimentation and inhuman experiments, and that's really weird, and I don't quite get that.
So it's Bioshock.
Yeah, it's basically Bioshock, the sector. It's really weird, I don't get that sector, but yeah. And the next one's a shopping mall, and is the thing that's is the sector that everybody remembers from this game because it's made fun of all the time in the community. Because the first line when you step out is, why is there a shopping mall in an alternate dimension in the middle of Antarctica?
That's a reasonable question.
Yeah, I can see why somebody might ask the question.
But yeah. But aside from that, the characters are all, just under 30 years old or just over 30 years old. They're about our age. And that's very refreshing in a video game. You don't see that very often. So they act genuinely like people.
Anyway.
Yes, especially JRPGs.
Yeah, you tend to have a spectrum between, teens and late teens.
Yeah, if you're 22 years old, you're practically dead.
Yes.
Yeah. But,
unless you manage to cross the line into hairy dad territory.
Yeah. The fan nickname for Protag is Spesmerin.
Why?
Spesmerin.
Because the Demonica suits they have to wear in this alternate universe so they can breathe and have increased combat capability make them look like space marines with funny helmets.
Not because he is Indrik Boreal's voice actor?
No, they unfortunately didn't do English voice acting for this game, and I was very sad.
That is disappointing.
It's something Atlas has been doing regularly, even with their less popular titles, so I just assumed it had it. But no, there is no Japanese voice acting in the game at all. Or, sorry, there is no English voice acting in the game at all. It's all in Japanese. Which is really... This is the most diverse, as far as ethnicity goes, cast in an SMT game. They're all adults, and they're all military specialists who come together from the various militaries of the world to investigate this big black hole in the middle of Antarctica that leads to other dimensions. So you've got, like, Mexican Junpei, who is your Chaos rep.
He's still annoying like Junpei?
I don't know his full story yet, but he's definitely... He's like Junpei if Junpei was an absolute jerkwad.
So, like Junpei?
Well, Junpei has some redeeming qualities about him. He actually cares about some other people. This Chaos rep is one of the most unlikable dudes I've ever met in a video game.
Oh, wow.
Like, but he's still very human about it.
But you played DMC Devil May Cry.
This is a point.
This is true, but I'm not sure if those count as people. The drawing, the line in the sand here is these characters still come off as human. Their actions have some form of human motivation behind them, even if it's just selfishness.
Not some sort of terrible game destroying robot.
Yeah, not whatever the heck they based Dino on and his fellows. Those characters do not have human as a base when writing their stuff to make a parallel to our arguments about the Fae. But or our discussions about the Fae, rather. But yeah, the law rep is some Russian girl that is a Russian scientist, and she's creepy, like really creepy, but she's understandably creepy, and that early in the game she gets kidnapped by demons and doesn't trust them, and it's an angel that saves her. So you understand why she's got the law blinders on, but it still comes off as really weird when you start really paying attention to what Mastima, if you know what that name means, is doing. Yep. Like it's the apocryphal angel of persecution. Like, this is clearly not a good guy to ally with, but no, she's got the log blinders on really hard. And what she just did in the story is really red flaggy. But I do like that these characters, they at least go out of their way to set up justifications for what they're doing. You know why the law rep is acting like a jerkwad? Because he's losing his mind in the place and wants to get out of there. Or rather, not the law rep, the chaos rep. He's a jerkwad that wants to get out of there. He's scared he's going to die. The chaos rep, the law rep. I keep getting these backwards. Because I've been playing too many SMT games too many times in a row. So the he's and hers are getting mixed up.
Too many characters.
Too many characters, too many reps. But the law rep genuinely was tortured by demons and got saved by angels. You know why she's setting up herself to be the law rep. And they're fairly human about it until they're not. As these reps tend to go, one of them becomes not human, and the other one becomes, I think she's not human. I can't tell what Mastima did to her, but she doesn't need a helmet to breathe in the Schwartz anymore, so it probably involves some kind of mumbo-jumbo.
The Schwartz? Oh dear.
It's called like it means like black void or something, or vanishing point in German, and it's some word I can't pronounce.
No,
like
it just means black. It just means black, dude.
It's like Schwarz or something. I can't say German words at all, so I've been calling it the Schwartz.
Because Spaceballs.
Yeah, because Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Good old Spaceballs.
When in doubt, default to Spaceballs.
But yeah, so that is the broad, quick 15-minute rushing through it overview of the game. And my impressions of it so far are I actually like the way they're handling the combat system, even though I'm not a fan of the system they use. For what they have, since they did not want to use the press turn system, I like what they've done. It's a fairly effective system for clearing trash, since the objective of this game is to get, through the dungeons and solve the dungeons puzzles. I like the characters. I like the way they do the representatives in this game much more than I do in other SMT games, whereas in like Nocturne, they're not characters, they're walking ideologies. And in SMT4, where they're all complete knob-ends the whole way through. Just, you have no idea why they have their character moments and points in SMT4. It just doesn't make sense at all. Especially Jonathan in SMT4. I have no idea why he decided to put on the law goggles so hard. He seemed like a fairly reasonable guy until, the mandatory alignment split happened. But in this game, it makes sense. Yeah, he just was like, stand aside, I've been ordered to cut down this dude and I must kill him. I'm like, no, Jonathan, shut up. You've been willing to listen to other demons before. Why are you so adamant about killing this one?
Shut up and put your edge away.
And put your sword away, dog. He's like, no. Oh, the monastery told me to. I'm like, dude, stop casting Bufudyne on stuff that reflects it to smirk the enemy, and then we'll talk. I've
never really been particularly in of the mainline's obsession with the alignment. Basically, the alignment driving everything. Like, it's the alignments always seem so cartoonish.
Yeah. It leads to what are otherwise decent characters either winding up pigeonholed when the mandatory shift happens, or the entire story being set up in a way that these characters are not real characters.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, in general, the way it's been handled has been bad. There are a lot of things to like about Nocturne, but I do think the alignment system being grandfathered in is the weakest part of Nocturne. And that is... So it baffles me why they keep doing it, but they have been playing dress up with it, as I've mentioned before. They've really, while they feel it is a core part of the SMT verse in general, dressing it up as like the Bonds route and the Massacre route and a few other route names, other than just Law and Chaos, where Law and Chaos are ostensibly just bad ends in Apocalypse, period. If you pick the Law or Chaos route, you're done. You lose. That's game over. You don't get to see the last 2 dungeons. You get a bad end. So they've been doing that. In Devil Survivor 2, they had actual ideologies as what you had to pick between instead of Law and Chaos, making them much more appealing as a result, even though they still don't know what those words mean when they kept using them. That they tried. And in this one, at least you understand why these people would go for the cartoonishly evil or cartoonishly mind-controlling people and align themselves with them. So, and the crews have real discussions about how stupid it is. They lampshade it in the game. Like, you and your general crewmates, who, like the dudes in your lab tech who effectively are, just 2 mad scientists who are way too happy to experiment with everything. You sit down with them and a few other dudes in the ship and you're like, what do you think we should do? These 2 guys are acting really crazy trying to make us sign up with them. And you have a actual genuine meeting about it, about how stupid this is. And why it's probably a good idea not to side with either of them. And the game does not dress it up that the Law and Chaos routes are bad ideas. Like, one of these is going to involve a world of silence, and the other one is going to involve a world of anarchy. We don't want either of these. We want to blow the big black hole up that's swallowing the Earth. That's our goal, right? And that's basically the point of the meeting. We need to ignore these guys and do our job. So, yeah, it's refreshing. I think a big reason the game's characters are so likable is because they are adults. Period. We are at an age in our lives where we are past the childish notions of self-discovery and stuff, which are nice and all while you're young, but once you do it, you're done. You don't need it anymore. And seeing people use what they've learned in life to make decisions is much more interesting at this point as a basis for a story like this. So
they're all bad and cartoonish.
Yes. And that is not to say the characters in this game are not tropey. They are, certainly. The scientists that develop all your stuff in the lab have the battle music start playing and start speaking in English about how excited they are to work with New Forma. Like, we have the characters here. The lab tech who works in the sick bay that heals you for free when you come back on the ship is way too interested in the new bodies of the 2 reps once they get them, and wants to explore, air quote, every inch ellipsis of them.
Ugh.
So, they are tropey. They are here and they exist. But genuinely, they're okay people. I could see myself having to work with these people and not wanting to tear my hair out. So, I've been having fun with that. If it wasn't for the awful map design, I would happily replay this game. But this is just, whoever designed this hates people. He genuinely wants to see people cry.
Just wants to watch the
world. Before the show, my voice was unintentionally cracking before the show because I'd looped around the same teleporter puzzle like 5 times, and it was not a short one. It took like 5 or 6 teleporters to get to where I was going. And I just could not, for the life of me, remember which one I didn't take. It was a nightmare. But I don't know whether to recommend this game or not. There's a lot of stuff to like in it. As if you want to see the SMT-verse done in a more adult way and genuinely a better way for the mainline games, it's a good game for that. But if you are not an absolute masochist, I can't recommend actually playing it. Especially not on the hardest difficulty. Now, they have included some features to alleviate some of this nightmare. They obviously could not change the main game. That would make a whole lot of fans mad and would not sell the game, because this is a remake. You need to resell it to the people that bought it originally as well. So they could not do that. But what they did do is they added what they call apps for your little Space Marine suit. So Mr. Space Marine has a bunch of new stuff that makes things easier, like Enemy Lullaby that makes you so odds of encountering things go from once every 20-ish steps to once every 50-ish. which is really nice at keeping on literally all the time if you plan on doing the bonus content, because then you won't overlevel it. And also makes it so you can actually remember where you're going and not be interrupted by, random encounters, which is the biggest thing that gets you lost. If you get lost and you're trying to remember a teleporter puzzle and you get random encounter after random encounter, you're not remembering where you went or where you're going. They have the ability to target summon accidents and make them always the fusion error exclusive stuff. So you can not have to sit there and just mash stuff together and reload saves forever. You can cause a fusion accident to happen intentionally and target it at the level range of whatever you're going for with the fusion accident exclusive races. So filling out the compendium is not nearly the same chore it is in like the SMT4 duology. You can force enemy encounters for quests that require you to talk to specific enemies inside quests, so you can just push a button and instantly encounter an enemy. You can see traps on the ground before you step in them, so you can make notes on stuff. In the original game, you could not do this. You had to fall in the trap to map it.
That seems inadvisable.
Yes, you had to go in the random teleporter and hope you wound up somewhere where you could find your back if you wanted it to show up on the map. And that was required for 100% mapping completion, which, like an idiot, I'm going for.
Yeah, because the game was designed by a masochist.
Yeah. Bunch of other stuff that's just really nice to have, but those are all the big things. So yeah, I like that stuff about the game. The fusion system, however, is the last thing I'm going to talk about. I'm going to have a different experience with this fusion system than almost everybody else, because a fellow masochist is doing this game with me, and we're going through it together. Because the fusion system is just butt backwards, pants on head retarded. Whoever came up with this idea is another sadist. Where, okay, so in SMT games, what happens when you mash two demons together, right? You get, in most of them that don't allow you to choose the skills, you get the demon that results from those two particular demons being mashed together, and somewhere between 1 and 3 additional skills being transferred onto the other target, usually at random, but you can back out and go back in until you get the ones you want.
Right. That
is not the case in this game.
Why?
Instead, in this game, the only way to transfer skills you actually want, otherwise, each demon can only inherit skills from fusion of a specific type. So, like, Pravati can only get healing and support skills from other demons. She cannot, if you have Agidine on a monster you're fusing to make her, you cannot just give her Agidine because you want her to have a damage move. It's not going to happen. There's no amount of mashing the demons together that will make her accept a fire move, period. She just doesn't take it.
Well, that was true in Nocturne as well.
Yeah. But it's down to like 1 or 2 types tops that these demons can inherit. It wouldn't be so bad if they could inherit, 3 to 4 types of moves, like some of the ones in Nocturne could, but almost every single demon, all the ones up, I'm level 65 right now, and every single pair I've tried to mash together can only inherit 1 or 2 types of moves tops. So this makes making custom demons a nightmare. And the system they have to fix this is one of the types of forma you get called the source system. So the forma source system works like this. Every time you encounter a demon for the first time, it's a blob on the field. You can't tell what it is. It's just a bunch of blue data specs. You have to fight it once to see what it is. After that, you get it to analyze level 1. And then by using it as a partner in battle after you're recruited to fuse it, or if you beat down enough of it in the field, you'll slowly increase that analyze level. Once it hits analyze level 3, the next time that demon is in your party and levels up, it'll give you its source forma, which has base moves for that particular type of demon. And it will give you these things to stick in with a fusion when you mash 2 monsters together. And what this lets you do is make custom skill sets for the demons. And after a while, you can eventually get a demon that, has a decent skill set by doing this over and over again, because you can get bonus skills when you get the sources. So what me and my friend had to do, because there's a system in this game where you can mash in a password and generate a demon. And there are password generators out there, but if you use them, you're terrible. So we drew the line at actually using the generators, and instead decided that the best way to find a compromise with the stupid fusion system was just to effectively give ourselves a second use of every source by messaging passwords back and forth to each other. And we were able to make a Nekomata that could cover 5 out of 6 major types of damage by level 20-something. And that's
Nekomata's an ultra low tier demon.
It is.
Yeah.
She squishes all get out, but it doesn't matter because you use demons forever in this game because you're going to get lost. Like, once you hit a point where you've got all the demons and stuff, you just take what you can get. And she just happened to be able to eat the right things to make that particular demon. It's just what we got. Nekomata is really bad. There were probably better demons we could have picked, but that's what we had based on the demons we had together. She's also really easy to make. So eventually we had to abandon that, and the next one we made was a Inti, I think? The sun god. Dude, that looks like he's wearing a Mardi Gras sun costume.
I can't think of it.
So he made... Yeah, it's I forget his name, but he's got a literal sun around his head.
Well, okay then.
He looks like a mascot for like some kind of store. So
Staxels.
Yeah, he's praised. He's even got the praise the sun post going on.
Oh boy.
So yeah, we made him, and he served us until about now, and now we're at it again, and we got to find something else to make. Because we both hit a block where we are having to fill out our trash clearing team with like 3 different types of demons. And Kukulane's looking like a pretty good target, but he's low level. And I'm advocating for Yggdrasil, but he has to get off his butt and actually do that quest to unlock Yggdrasil. Because it's a really obnoxious quest that involves time travel and running all over the zones. But yeah, so my experience with the fusion system has been, it's a pain in the butt, but I have a way to get around it. Other people are not going to have this way to get around it, and if you have to resort to the password generator, I will probably not come down on you too hard, but I don't recommend it, because this game can be trivialized really easily if you get the numbers, just a little bit above what the game expects you to have at that point. So I would encourage you to try and play through it normally, but totally understand why you would just give up 3 hands up in the air. So yeah, I've been going on this for a bit. That is Strange Journey. And I will have it done next week. I'll probably go over what's left next week, and then I will put the SMT little marathon I've been doing away for a while, I think. I think it'll be break time for SMT for at least a few months.
Okay.
So yes, y'all won't have to hear about that. So yes, use that information to decide whether you want it or not. I cannot say I recommend or don't recommend it to people just because. It is not that type of game where it's easy to make a decision one way or the other for people.
Yep. Right then, we should dive into some news, I guess.
We should.
There's a few little things that happened this week. Let's see.
Yes.
Let's start off.
With all you.
Yeah, I think I found most of the stuff this week. Alright, so let's start off at the top of the pile. Just a small little note here. They're stopping production of PS Vita physical games. This should surprise nobody.
I'm not really surprised. I mean, they don't sell physical PS Vitas, so
no.
There's not really much point in them selling the game.
When was the last time you actually saw a Vita game on shelves in a store, by the way?
I love the bargain bin for the Vita at my store.
Yeah, okay, not counting the bargain bin.
Okay, they don't even have a shelf for new releases.
There you go. Yeah. Like, you just don't see games for the Vita on shelves anymore. It's all digital.
Even then, the Vita's like bargain bin shelf is like maybe 30 games if you're lucky and they're at they have a high inventory.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that shelf is just, it's not even on a proper shelf. It's like a pull-out shelf you would stick in like a random room somewhere. It's not attached to the wall. It's just this plonked down shelf in the middle of the floor that's tiny because they can't justify putting more shop space in for it.
Yeah.
Just because the raw number of Vita games they have is so little.
Yeah. The game shop I frequent, it's a corner of the bargain bin for PlayStation, and that's all it gets.
I had them straight up tell me I'm like one of 2 people that actually buys things from that shelf.
Yeah. But nobody does. Everybody buys their Vita games digitally, because that's where all the good ones are.
Yeah. But if you can find a game you want on that shelf, Disgaea 4 was like $3.
Yeah. I mean, we already hit the peak perfect Vita game, and that was Persona 4. So, yeah, we don't need them anymore.
But yeah. No, we're not doing the Fernari yell about the Vita topic again.
I'm just making fun of the Vita as usual. But, yeah. So that's a bit of news. It's just a minor thing. I'm honestly surprised it took them this long.
It's about this is like the end of the proper handheld console life cycle, I think. So it makes sense.
I think it's the end of the handheld console life cycle writ large at this point.
Pretty much.
Yeah, this is kind of game over, man, for it, which is sad, but I mean, it makes sense.
Well, somebody could, innovate like it's happened before.
Well, that's kind of the direction they could take the Switch. They don't seem to be intent on doing it, but that's where they could take it.
Some people do use the Switch is a weird thing. We're gonna have to really see how people wind up using it in the end, because I hear different reports on how that people use it. Everybody uses it different.
Yeah,
like it may be a glorified home console for me that sits on a shelf and I haven't touched in like 4 months, or whenever I was doing the Breath of the Wild stuff was the last time I touched it. But other people use it as a portable game console.
Yeah,
like regularly. Like I took it to one convention-ish thing that I got dragged to, and it was fine for that. But it may be the way things are just going now, which honestly I'd be okay with. Yeah,
I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Big, powerful, portable consoles seem like something I would like. I don't know how well it's going to work, simply because it's not... I am the only person with big enough pockets for that thing to fit in a pocket.
Yeah. You need big pockets for the Vita. Also
for the Switch.
For the Switch. Not so much for the Vita.
You can cram a Vita in a pocket. It's fairly slim relative to what it looks like in pictures. It's just really long, because it's got to do the widescreen HD resolution, but yeah. It's great for people to wear coats everywhere. It fits right in your interior pocket.
It doesn't fit in my... I don't ever wear a coat. What's going on here? It's too hot to wear coats. Urgh.
I wear coats all the time. But yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a minor thing. Stores just stopped selling physical Vita games years ago. So yeah.
And I think, eventually we'll get to a point, probably within the next 3 or 4 years, where the physical stores start dying.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a while now. But
it's purely a function of their market. But the thing is, even though we say, brick and mortar video game stores are going to die, yada yada yada, you could argue that they are well on their way to dying, and that it is visible that they are. If you walk into the average EB 10 years ago, the composition of their stock would have been games on every wall.
Yes.
If you walk into one today, what do you see?
Funko Pops.
Yeah. They're Funko Pops, board games, trading card, rando trading card packs, stuff like that is what's on the shelves now for the most part. The games take up only about half of the shelf space in the store dedicated to games.
Yeah.
Which makes it actually really frustrating, because their inventory is always bigger than what they have on the shelves. And for me, if I'm looking for a specific game and I don't see it on the shelves, it's become a thing where I just have to go up to somebody and go, can you check your inventory and see if you've got X? Because I don't see it on the shelf. And it'll usually be there, and they just knew nobody was going to buy it, so they left it in the back.
Because what they sell is Funko Pops. Although I've never actually personally seen a person buy one.
No.
My sister and my younger cousin love those things. And they know they're bad. They both know they're bad. They acknowledge that when I talk to them, but they still buy them.
They're like the crappy, embarrassing Western version of an Nendoroid.
To be fair, Nendoroids are fairly embarrassing as it is.
Yeah, but that at least, like, how do I say? Like, Nendoroids are supposed to be like super deformed cute.
Yes.
And Funko Pops are what happens if you try and push that too far.
Yes, indeed. We just stop with the Funko Pops already, please. Just stop.
People must like them, though I can't for the life of me understand why. I just assumed that if you're going to put something on your shelf, you want it to look cool.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just my, erroneous thinking.
I know a few people who've bought them because of they believe the potential collector's value of them, but of the actual yeah.
My little Toko figure from
funny joke.
There is only a handful of those things that are actually worth anything as a collector's item.
My reprinted several figures worth more than most people's collection.
Yeah.
You're putting out a lot.
You
I
are.
can't hear what you're saying.
So yeah, don't do that. Because you make yourself look foolish.
Oh man, that's so horrible. I don't know whether to feel irritation or pity towards the people who are spending.
Like, I don't even. That type of thinking does not fit when you've done some economic studies. Period. It's done work. We've seen the comic crash. We know what happens if you try to do this.
It don't work.
It don't work no more.
All right.
So I love you, Vita. You were good while you were alive. After you got off the ground, it took a bit, but once you did, you were a fun system. I hope games keep coming out for it digitally for at least a little bit longer.
I don't see why they wouldn't.
I think they probably will, because there is still a market for handheld games. There's still people who want to make games for handhelds, and Nintendo is still a troublesome character when it comes to dealing with.
Yeah.
So you're likely to still be able to get some mileage out of the simple fact that you can get a thing onto a Vita where you might not be able to get it onto a DS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the Vita is just a localization dream because it takes pennies to localize a game, and all you basically have to pay for is somebody to translate the text. It's apparently stupid easy and really cheap, and that's why we have such a large collection of just random import games on the Vita, which I love to death.
Yes. All right. What have we got next? Speaking of random import games, Super Neptunia RPG heading to the West on both the PS4 and the Switch, because we all need more Neptunia.
I'm just delighted. Absolutely delighted. Like, this is one of their sort of subsidiaries making it. This isn't the main studio or anything like that. I'm deeply amused because it's like their franchise is expanding at this sort of spectacular rate, which completely shames so many of the others.
Oh, it's insane.
I find it highly entertaining.
It's like every 10 minutes there's a new Neptunia game. It's not quite that bad, but give it a week or two.
Yeah, and it's based on Super Mario RPG, and I'm sure that it'll be terrible.
It looks incredibly silly.
But I don't go to Neptunia games to get like a polished game experience. I go to play them for the lulz. Like,
yeah,
that's
quite the opposite.
Literally the only reason.
Oh dear. So yes. Yeah. Like, there's a sale on a Neptunia at the moment, so if you haven't played a Neptunia game, go to Steam, get one for next to nothing, and be amazed at how self-aware but terrible these games are. It's bad when even the games in the character are making fun of the developers.
Yep. I will probably get it, because it's a Neptunia game, and I get them even if it's going to be a long time before I get around to playing.
Yeah,
because I enjoy them. They're not great, but I have some fun playing them. Honestly, that's all I ask for most of the time. What Diablo 3 didn't supply, so...
Yeah, it was shiny, but boring. This Neptunia is silly. Right. Who wants to pick the next one?
Hang on, I just got ambushed by Sibylle, who's a new hidden boss in the game that shows up randomly. I'll find one.
That sounds
inconvenient. Stare at me for a minute.
Right, well, the elephant in the room has been the Steam crackdown.
Yes, because boobs are all of a sudden bad.
People are characterizing this in a variety of ways, and I'm almost convinced that most of them are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this has been my experience going through this. Is what is actually happening here, and how many games are being targeted. Like, what's going on with this specifically? Because I haven't seen any good summaries of it.
And I don't think that's because none of them exist, because people are too busy running around with their hair on fire over it.
Yeah.
Like, based on what people are saying, it is like, I'm in not one, not two, but multiple minds about it, because I can see a whole range of different problems and perspectives on this matter. But I don't know what's actually happening, because I only know what people are hysterically reporting. And it is hysteria for the most part. That's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
People running around like it's the end of the world. Number one, it's not the end of the world. Number two, it's most likely going to be reversed in the near future, as almost all sudden moves ever made by Steam have been, except for the ones that, are important for them to reverse, like the can't gift anything to anyone ever move. But the deal in general, as people have been reporting it, is that there has been some sort of allegedly grassroots battery of complaints made to Valve about the content being sold on Steam being effectively softcore porn. A lot of it is hardcore porn. But yeah, basically it's a content complaint, and the contention is that Steam ought to remove these things from their store because they are unsuitable for public sale.
Oh,
the weird thing about this that makes me think that there's way more going on than we know, or way less depending on the way you view it, is that there is no reason for Steam to respond to, or Valve to respond to any of this, because it's blatantly not going to affect their market share at all.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is going to legislate anything. Like, there's no legislation is in the offing. There's no danger of any kind. The allegation, the popular allegation, is that an evil bunch of conservative Christians are trying to take all your booby games. That's the popular.
That unfortunately seems to be the knee-jerk reaction to everything these days.
Yeah, well, at any rate, it doesn't. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. It seems unlikely, on account of most of those groups are the least tech-savvy people you'll ever run into. And furthermore, just because those groups are currently crowing about it doesn't necessarily mean they had a hand in it. ISIS crows about every instance of Muslims committing terrorist acts. It doesn't mean that they are all paid-up members of ISIS. So, yeah, they can take credit for this if they want, but, I mean, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily that they were actually involved in it. So it's impossible to tell based on who's crying about it, who was actually responsible. In order for something like this to happen, there is basically the usual way is that there is some person who is an entryist for some ideology who has achieved a position of power that they think they can make a move. Like, this is the sort of thing where, like, because I'm sure that demands to remove X from the store, like, there'll be some guy who has to file all of those, and there'll be an enormous pile of don't bother reading this documents on someone's desk somewhere. Right? Because it just happens that big companies receive a tide of complaints 24/7. That's just the way of the world. So for them to suddenly all get responded to when there is no political reason for them to do so, like there's no major shifts in the way Valve business policy has to be carried out, which suggests that they should suddenly move on all of these, suggests to me that there is somebody who has just been given the authority to action all of these and has decided to go hog wild. Because that's what this looks like. There's been company after company after company have received warnings to either their game has just been taken down, or they've received warnings to censor their game by date X, or their games will be taken down from the Steam store, etc., etc. The likes of, Honey Pop and a whole pile of visual novels and whatnot. And everybody has already decided what they believe about this. So I don't know that you can actually convince anybody, regardless of whether or not you have all the facts. But what we are seeing is a lot of games being taken down or threatened with takedowns. So we don't know from how far up the chain this action comes. We don't know how likely it is to stick, because if it's somebody who's basically a functionary who's decided it, it probably won't stick. We don't know what the underlying motivation is. Like, there's a way less is known about it than everybody seems to be telegraphing. Because everybody seems to think they've got the whole story, but most of those stories are stories that people have made up within their heads about, evil, censorious, conservative groups. It could be an evil, censorious, conservative group. Like, it's possible. It's not. It's just that there's no evidence that it is, other than the fact that a decade ago they would have been trying to pull something like this. Before Steam had this sort of meaningful market presence that it has now. Or I guess we're saying more like 15 years because we're getting old. I just had to suspend that one a little bit so that I could strike you while you were weak.
Why?
Because if I have to suffer, then you have to suffer too. But yeah. So I personally am in multiple minds about this. Now, this has been like the topic of 100% of conversation on my social media feed for like the past 2 or 3 days, which frankly is a nice change from Trump.
Yeah, that's kind of getting annoying.
But yeah, like I have a lot of views on this, and I'm not really sure where I come down on it. And it becomes even less sure when you don't know anything about what's actually happening. But on one hand, like, I don't like, as I've said on the show many times before, I don't like sort of like interventionist telling people what they can and can't do from a sort of a high legislative level. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And the main reason for you to ban something that is making you money, and that you've got every reason to believe is continuing to make your money, is if you think that if you don't, somebody is going to slap you with legislation that forces you to do something you want to. Because someone somewhere has already done the calculations to determine whether or not the thing is going to make money. The only place that doesn't happen is Hollywood, pretty much. As far as Valve goes, they would not have made any money if they were this bad at calculation. They were bad enough to ban people from buying games for other people if they live in different countries, but the fact is that 99% of their revenue probably comes from the United States, so they probably don't need to worry about it as much as I want them to, simply because there's so much money flowing in there, so much money.
Yes.
And since the Eurozone is also unified by currency, they don't get hit too hard there. It's just there's a few countries like New Zealand and Australia that get disproportionately affected by that. So as much as I would want to believe otherwise, I think that they probably did their math. I don't know in what way they got gains out of it, but it's probably to do with taxation or something like that. But we've discussed that before. But the reason why I bring that to mind is because I think that actually they do their math on what's making money isn't, and what's going to come down the pipe isn't. So if this was a policy-based legislation within Valve from the top, it is because that they suspect that there is some bigger force than them who will be able to affect their bottom line if they don't take this action. That's if this is policy, as opposed to a person acting out, as it were. So I'm never in favour of that kind of regulation. Like, on the other hand, I don't like that Steam has all this garbage on it.
Yes.
Period end. Now, this isn't a method. This is not a method of addressing garbage specifically, because Steam is full of garbage that isn't. But in fact, there is more garbage on Steam that isn't porn than garbage on Steam that is porn. However, there is a lot of garbage on Steam that is porn.
Gotta start somewhere.
What makes this look like a very sloppy and not policy-based series of attacks on products is the fact that it's not broad enough, basically. Like, there haven't been thousands of titles being taken down the way there should be if they were changing policy. There have only been ones that will upset large numbers of people, which makes it seem strategic. So the companies which have manufactured a package of 70 extraordinarily poorly written visual novels which have basically got stolen hentai images dispersed throughout, and they're calling it a adult visual novel. Like, those things are largely unaffected because, nobody buys them and nobody cares about them. But Steam is still infested with them, utterly infested with them. And generally speaking, I would be happy if all that crap wasn't on Steam, and even the higher class porn, so to speak. If such a
higher
thing can
class.
exist. If such a thing can exist, I would rather it not be there as well. I would be happy if Steam was a clean platform. Like, I'm perfectly all right with that. You can have another platform to distribute that content. I liked it better when Steam was reliably clean. And
I just thought it was some quality control.
I know that the thing, what knocks on from that, though, is like, I am 100% clear on the fact that with Witcher 3 contains straight up blatant softcore porn.
Yes.
Like, they make no bones about it. So my saying that I would like Steam to be clean is only an extension of the fact that I wish the games industry would be clean, because I don't think that there exists a conventional video game, leaving visual novels aside for a moment, I don't think that there exists a conventional video game where a sex scene has ever helped. Ever.
No.
It has never, ever helped. From the very first time it became a big press debacle with Mass Effect to the modern day, that has never added anything to a game except porn. Porn adds porn to a game. That's all it does. And it makes it unsuitable for a large number of people. People who don't want to subject themselves to that. Children who should not be subjected to that because it does affect your development. Like, the reality is that I wish the gaming industry were clean, and it's not. Okay, switching back to the other hand now, which is in favour of them not removing it, is that Valve has entered into contracts with these people. They've made agreements. They're now going back on their word. Because there have been... in order to get a title on Steam, you used to, not so much nowadays, but you used to have to go through a great deal of hazing. If you want to get a really risque game on Steam and you have, any reputation that will call attention to you, so like the people who broke the ice with getting adult style visual novels on Steam and a lot of other games with adult content, they had to go through a great deal of wheeling and dealing and discussion and analysis with Valve in order to leap all of the hurdles and get their usually censored version of the game on Steam. They've got their uncensorship patches and whatnot might be hosted in dark servers off-site or whatever, but generally speaking, they've gone through a lot they've jumped a lot of hurdles to get there, and the ink is dry. Like, they have been issued formally their permission to sell their product on the Steam platform. And Steam, as owners of the platform, can usually revoke that at any time. They are going to contract themselves out of that right. But it is very, very unsporting to go back on your word when you have given somebody your word. We will sell your product. And then, suddenly just turn around and decide, you know what, we are not going to sell your product anymore. Why? Because one person who we're not going to name has complained about it. Like, I don't think that's sporting. It's very poor form. Going back over to the other hand, I think that generally speaking, the cultural saturation with porn is unhealthy for pretty much everybody involved in any capacity. And I would be really happy if the culture, by its own lights, naturally discouraged its production. I'm not in the form of political acts or lobbying, but I think that less of it is good for everybody, because I am of the school of thought that does not believe that the ultimate sexual license is the purest good on earth, and that the only thing that is of concern with human freedom is the ability to bonk anything, which is pretty much what's culturally accepted these days, is that the highest form of freedom is to be able to screw anything you want. So, and the sort of high density of pornography and pornographic content that you find in every form of media now is sort of a symptom of that, and a autocatalytic driver of that as well. I mean, it does affect you if you consume that material. It does affect you mentally, it affects you spiritually, and it affects you physically. it unbalances you. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to talk about that because it's one of those things that conflicts with the zeitgeist. But it is bad for you, generally speaking. It is bad to be surrounded with it. It is bad to overindulge in it, like anything. If you are a spiritual person, then it's bad categorically to indulge in it. But even if you're not, it's bad to overindulge in it. But, yeah, so it being around is a bad thing, generally speaking, in my opinion. But, you know, going back over to the other hand, then you can see how this will carry on and on and on. But the fact is that Steam is a business entity, and they have a right to do whatever they want on their platform, period, end. And we have a right as customers to react to that the way that you want. But we signed our souls away already when we bought all those games on Steam. We're in there for the long haul. And, you know, we've got to keep in mind that they always had the right to take things away from us. They always did. They do to this very day. If your Steam library was gone tomorrow and Gabe Newell was dead, so he wasn't able to enact his sort of final plan that he had for that eventuality, like, we would lose our libraries and be not a damn thing we could do about it because we don't actually have any rights. You could probably take out a class action lawsuit, but it would be months before any of it was resolved.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a situation where we don't have any rights to object. The people who are selling games on their platform don't have any rights to object. This is not an issue of free speech, and it's not an issue of censorship. Because ultimately it is about how somebody wants to use their platform to sell other people's products. And those other people have to come hat in hand if they want their things sold. And I think by this time next week it'll all be resolved and nobody will care anymore.
Yeah.
Because the odds of a backpedal are very, 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 very high. On account of this, as I've said, looks like a lone gun mission almost.
Yeah. So yeah,
until then, everybody's going to run around with their hair on fire.
Yeah, I'd say this time next week, and it's going to be completely forgotten about. No one has remembered it. Nothing has changed.
I don't think that this is not going to go down in the annals of history as particularly important. And I could turn out to be horribly, horribly wrong about that. And this could be like heralding the entryism of a whole new kind of interference from lobby groups in video gaming. But I seriously doubt it. I would be very surprised if that were the case.
I doubt it.
I would very, very much like for Steam to have a good pruning. Quite aside from wanting to purge it of all of the absolutely obscene quantities of obscenity. Also, just get rid of all the crapware. Come on. Like, Gabe, has your experiment not carried on for long enough? You know that this doesn't work now, non-curated Steam. Please, just get back on the horse.
Yes. We just need a filter for the crap. And yeah, porn aside, there is just a lot of crap.
I suppose I'm probably, aside from my personal religious convictions, I'm a bit oversensitive about the porn because of the amount of anime stuff I consume.
Mm.
Because that means that you get fed porn suggestions constantly by the automatic curation of the auto-curator of what you see. Like, because I look at lots of anime stuff, the tacit assumption is that I want to see as much anime titty as possible.
Yeah.
And sort of, you know I walk a fine line because you can win me over to playing a game with cute anime girls easily. So it does not necessarily mean I want to see porn.
Yeah.
But
Seems suggestion system needs an entire overhaul as well.
Now, there are a couple of other facets to this that I think are absurd. Number one, I don't think that there is actually anybody who isn't a third wave feminist who is making the suggestion that pornography turns people into rapists.
No. Which
is what some people have alleged is the motivating force behind this. That there is a group of entryists who have decided that this pornographic material makes women get raped, therefore it all needs to go, because gamers are the most dangerous group on earth.
Because we are all literally Satan.
But that is one contention I've seen levelled. The opposite contention, that pornography doesn't affect you at all, is blatantly wrong. And every study which has analysed it has proven this beyond a shadow of doubt. It does affect you. What it doesn't do is turn you into a criminal. It's much in the same. It's the same argument pretty much with violent video games. Playing an excessive amount of violent video games does desensitize you to violence. And if all of those games, if you grew up in a diet of playing games that were like explicitly about sadism, they would wreck your mental outlook on the world, because that you can't surround yourself by something and not be affected by it. But that is not the same thing as playing Doom turning you into a school shooter. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
No, it does not happen.
So that whole can of worms is being opened up in one corner, and there are a lot of corners like this, man. Everybody has their own pet theory because nobody has any real information. The other prominent one I've seen is that it's some sort of guerrilla warfare against anime.
I've seen that one thrown around.
That's really, really popular. Like that, it's anime specifically that is being attacked as a medium. The manga drawing style, that Japanese drawing style, and its near relatives are specifically the ones being attacked. That's silly because it's silly. It's sort of tautological. Like there actually isn't a shadow cabal that has it in for anime. Like I don't think that shadow cabal exists.
No.
So yeah, anytime you have to posit an elaborate conspiracy, you're probably wrong.
Oh boy.
So
that got ranty.
Those are my thoughts on the debacle. Well, I mean, I wanted to get it all out there because I have so many different opinions. Like, I'm not resolved on, what I would like to see happen. If this was a legit, this is all under the umbrella. If this was a legit change in policy that was eventually going to be thoroughly applied to Steam, I don't know if I'd be happy or not, because I would be happy with a clean Steam, but I would also not be happy with a Steam that caves so easily under pressure.
Yeah, call them Blizzard in that case. But I guess we'll wait and see on this one.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things.
Yep, but honestly, I'm not expecting really anything to come of it.
Yeah, I think that there's a backpedal probably already in the works because this has been a PR disaster. Mm-hmm. Like, the only people who have been crowing about it are people we know don't play video.
All right, what's next on the list?
Let's have... this horrible thing.
Which one would that be?
It's not really a good... There's no way to segue from the last topic, but... Microsoft announced a new Xbox adaptive controller focused on accessibility.
It's a very strange-looking thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what we have here is a controller that is designed specifically for people with disabilities. You have a base console which has two really big buttons and a couple of smaller buttons on it, as well as plugs that you can plug in additional pads. And that being extra buttons that are giant, or, pedals, microphones, what have you.
Right. So I'm not hearing anything that sounds bad so far.
I'm not seeing anything overly bad so far. It's just a bit silly looking.
It's just something about this doesn't look like the optimal way to do this. It's just with all the... It's something... The big thing that worries me with this is it seems like you would have to buy this thing and then buy like 50 different Microsoft-specific accessories for it for whatever disability you have in particular.
Yeah, that's...
We already have remappable consoles or controllers out there and already have them with third-party stuff, and people are acting like this is a big brand new thing. Like, yeah, it's great you're helping people that are disabled and stuff and have this big honking, pad controller for people that don't have arms and have to play with their feet or whatever, so they can dance on the controller and still play the game. But it's, I assume that's what this is. The buttons are so fracking huge.
Yeah, not far off.
Yeah, it's just... We've seen third-party ones like, what was that company called? I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there was one design that did not look this terrible and was not clearly money-grubby with you have to buy all these different accessories depending on what type of disability you have. It was just, you buy the controller that'll fit what you need out the gate. This is, you have to buy this big padded box thing, and then you buy what you need.
I don't know. It depends what they're doing with this thing. Like, is it for mass market? If it's not, then there might be some deal struck where they're going to sell it well below what it would cost as a conventional market product because of its purpose to enable people to participate in a market that they couldn't participate in before. Like, that makes sense from a capitalist point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you can give somebody entry into a market, then you can afford to give them a lot of latitude in order to give them an opportunity to spend money later. So it's not necessarily going to be a money grubbing exercise, but I think Ari's other point is more important in that usually a person who has a serious disability and wants to play video games would be better off getting more specialized engineering done in order to get a controller that better caters for their specific needs, rather than buying a modular one which was engineered as a Microsoft Skunkworks experiment.
Yeah. So yeah, I can give them props for their effort and their ideal, but yeah, you're right. I think a better solution would be instead of having a one size fits all thing, is something catered to people's specific situation.
Then again, I mean, I don't know who did this. Like, maybe this is just like the earliest forms of something that is going to be revised by a workshop they set up specifically for this purpose.
Maybe.
Because like when it comes to the way I would like to see gaming go as a social force, accessibility ranks like infinitely higher on the list for me than feminism does.
A lot of things do.
If all of the energy that was devoted to trying to improve female representation in games was devoted instead to improving the accessibility of games to people who can't normally play them because of physical issues, like gaming would be a much better place.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is that every woman who chooses to play a video game can play a video game.
Yeah, if they want.
A person with no hands can't just play one because they want to.
Yeah. Ultimately, it gets more people into the hobby, and that's always a good thing.
Yep. So, yeah, it's a tiny thing. You posted it, and I needed something to jump off of. That was all I really saw.
It's been a week of just little things. Lots of little things. So, what else? We've got Devolver Digital have announced they're going to do another E3 thing. I'm not going to call it a presentation, because last year was not a presentation. That was an acid trip.
Yeah, indies are weird, though. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing, is like, you've got at one end, you've got indie, who are all weird, and at the other end, you've got, like, the EA presser, which is all people with no personality in grey suits, like,
yes,
or celebrities from world sporting accomplishment who don't know why they're there.
Yes, we are Borg. Your money will be assimilated. So I'm actually glad they're doing it. Like, I'm not going to call it Devolver's thing at last year a presser, because it obviously wasn't. They didn't announce anything. But what they did do is take the piss out of E3 as a whole. With,
which
people...
I think E3 needed that once upon a time, but I think that they're bleeding so badly now that it's almost cruel.
It's just making fun of a dying horse. So yeah. Oh, anyway, it should at the very least be entertaining. Alright. Anything else? We've got, another studio being acquired. This time the guys who did Blood Bowl have been bought out by Big Ben, who I do not know what they made. I'd forgotten that.
I do not know either.
I've forgotten what Styx series was. Oh, that's right. Styx is a character that released from a game series that started with Of Orcs and Men, which I have to give the most gratuitous use of the word F-bomb in a game award. Because good grief, that was... The only thing dark about that fantasy was the amount that they dropped the F-bomb. Ugh. Okay, and now, so that's out of the way. Last article we've got is one we can feel all incredibly smug about. Key Productions.
What are we feeling?
Shutting down. The guys who did Lawbreakers and Radical Heights.
People would be sadder about that if Cliffy B wasn't such a douche.
Yes. And I think that's the big thing is of why they're shutting down is because Cliffy B is a douche.
He led in this week past one of the most graceless studio closures I have ever seen.
Oh?
Like, it was like he was just embarrassment. Like, he tweeted furiously all day the day they shut down about how great his ideas for games were, and basically with the unspoken writer being it was a terrible injustice that the studio had been shut down. I mean, he led all of his people and their livelihoods straight into the abyss because he couldn't make good decisions. It's his fault they shut down. It's his fault that all of the people that he worked for him now don't have jobs. It's his fault, and he had the audacity to go on Twitter and talk about what a great games designer he is and how great all of his ideas are, and how Lawbreakers wasn't his fault. No,
yes, it was.
No, Lawbreakers was his fault. He decided to, the analogy I saw online this week was the way to describe the games industry is a couple of people, like you've got a 5-foot high stone wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see a couple of monster trucks with 8-foot high tires manage to slowly climb over them and manage to get over to the other side. And then you see like a dozen cars drive into them at 100 miles an hour, thinking they can do the same thing.
That's actually pretty accurate, yes. So in this case, ignoring Cliffy B for a moment, even though that's incredibly difficult, you had Lawbreakers being a flop because they wanted to ape Overwatch. But, nobody's going to play Lawbreakers because Overwatch is a thing. And their saving throw was to make a very quick, very slapdash Battle Royale game. But nobody's going to play that because everyone's playing Fortnite.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, that 2 months ago they were all playing PUBG.
Yes.
Like, that's how insecure your position in this industry is when you are not the first guy off the blocks.
Mm-hmm. And PUBG is hemorrhaging players last I looked.
He bet his studio's future on that.
Yep.
Like, he got one of the two natural outcomes. There is success and there is failure. And he got failure. Like 99% of people will.
I don't think failure was actually on... Oh, sorry. I don't think success was actually on the table this time. Like, even remotely.
Well, yeah, I mean, he chose to drive his car into the
brick wall.
Into the brick wall. And, there's that tiny Marble Phantasm level possibility that you'll just pass straight through the brick wall because, atoms are mostly empty space. But that doesn't actually happen in real life.
No, that's not how physics works. And going up against the big juggernauts in the games industry and trying to present your crappy little product as the better alternative just is not going to work. And that's nothing to say of Cliffy B being an enormous douche on top of it.
Yeah, like, this all comes back to him just being a douche canoe. Like,
good chunk of it.
Nobody cares because the dude was a douche canoe the whole way through. If he had not been a douche canoe, people might actually care. But no, the dude was one of the biggest tossers I've ever seen on Twitter when he was talking about his video game.
Yeah.
So nobody cares that he blew up.
Yeah, like, nobody cared about Lawbreakers before. And, like, he went, when he was talking about his video game, he goes online and he squawks about how great his game is because his levels where they do their Battle Royale fighting have transgender bathrooms, and this makes them superior to the games that don't have transgender bathrooms. Like, I'm sorry, but we proved that gamers actually do have to be your audience. It doesn't matter how much you pander to a bunch of political hacks who don't actually play video games.
We've had one game that has done transgender bathrooms correctly, and that was City of Heroes.
The whole thing was just really, really, really dumb. He was a dumb person doing dumb things for dumb reasons, and he got a dumb result. Like, This is just... play stupid games, win stupid prizes, mofo.
So yes, the smug is very, very real. And it's not just us, it's just everybody being smug about this now.
Well, the
last I saw a screenshot a while back. The last screenshot I saw of active users for Lawbreakers on Steam was like 1 currently with a weekly high of 7.
That's actually an interesting question. Let me see. Steam. Let me look it up and see what I can find for both Lawbreakers and Radical Heights. Keep in mind, actually, the Radical Heights only launched last month. It's been 1 month since they launched the last game and they're shutting down. Let me see. Lawbreakers. Current players, 3. 30-day average, 3.8.
Yeah, that's not awesome.
No.
Not awesome.
And
I expect that those 3 players are probably a bug, because it is a battle royale game. You need more than 3 people to actually play.
Oh, they're bots.
The bots that got the farmer forgot to turn off.
Yeah. So Radical Heights is doing a bit better. Current players is 365. 30-day average is 1,041. However, their 30-day gain is minus 1,887. So,
yeah.
That is a big number for that amount of players.
Yep.
Oh boy. So yeah,
good riddance.
Good riddance. I guess.
I hope that whichever members of his team were actually talented will go on to do greater things.
I do feel sorry for those people.
They're probably being held back by the douchebag they had as their boss.
Yeah. Go out, find a better studio, and we hope to see your work elsewhere. And yeah, don't follow Cliffy B, please.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll Molyneux his way into a cozy position somewhere else. Because these people seem to. That just seems to happen.
Molyneux. Molyneux is another
still owes me trees. I want my trees, Molyneux.
You're still on about that.
He promised me. He promised me 15 years ago that he would give me trees growing in real time, and I've yet to see it.
You don't see a tree grow in real time, but anyway.
It doesn't matter. He promised it.
If you go back to play Fable now, you should have seen that tree grow.
Well, you don't do that, because Fable's not a very good game.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, well, the only people in this world who lie more than lawyers and politicians are, creative producers of video games.
That's the truth. All right. I think that's pretty much it for the show then.
Really? We got nothing else? I actually felt like we talked about some things today.
We did. We actually accomplished something.
We did. Alrighty then. In my topic of the week, how big of a douche is Cliffy B? I want a quantifiable number from you guys.
78%.
I think it's a bit higher than that.
It probably is higher than that. So,
but yes.
It's probably like closer to being about 130% douche.
All douche.
All douche with change.
I don't like that word anymore.
It's lost all meaning.
After I've heard nothing but a bunch of political campaigns that used it over the last 4 years, I don't like the word change anymore.
Oh, that word, not douche.
Oh, yeah.
It was old when Obama was campaigning in the primaries against Hillary. They had already started making that a joke.
Yeah.
That's why it was the Jib Jab video. Do you remember
Change.
that? Yep. Oh, dear.
It's going back a
Jib
ways.
Jab was good. I remember when Jib Jab was good. Anyway, I think that's about it. Closing comments, go.
I need more free time to play more Vidya. I also need Fate Granddaughter to stop being such a douche and give me my gold monument. My saber
I don't
monument.
want to hear about how Fate Granddaughter is stiffing you on the army.
Yeah, I got no right to complain in the shadow of your being stiffed.
Like, it's really, really hard for me to like, I'm starting months and months out, and I still can't build a decent lineup for Prisma Causeway because I don't have any female Lancers and I don't have any female Sabres. And the reason for that is that you need luck on the gacha to get those.
Yep. You just need to put a wig on Ku.
No, he would make a terrible magical girl.
Yes, he would. But that would totally be a in-character event, by the way.
Alrighty, folks. We're going to get out of here before big rants on Grand Order start happening again. Because I can't say anything when they talk about that game, or bad things happen. Alright.
Yes, the gacha jelly is real.
This is the reason I just shut up whenever they start talking about that game. Alright. We'll see y'all next week. Sayonara, bye-bye.